Hello, and welcome back to Measuring Learner Data and Assessment. This is Week 4, Lecture 3, Pros and Cons of Technology Use in Assessment. We've seen now that technology is definitely making an impact in the world of education, and more specifically assessment. I've made the argument that overall technology is something that should be accepted as a social force that is integral to education and therefore used in assessment. But is that enough? Is it enough to say that technology plays an important role in our students' lives already, and so it should play a role in our assessment of their educational growth? Let us say for the moment that it is not. To those ends, we will use this lecture to delve a bit more deeply into the pros and cons of utilization of technology in assessment. In addition to answering those questions, we will try and begin to frame an answer to the following. Is data from assessment using technology more reliable? Or do we use tech simply because it is easier? And does the rise of learning analytics via educational technology usage make traditional assessments obsolete? First, in what ways has the influx of technology in assessment had a positive impact? We've discussed previously the ways technology can be, and has been, incorporated into different forms of assessment. Creators of diagnostic assessments have begun using technology to make scoring and reporting easier. Web 2.0 and app developers have created and modified a myriad of ways to use technology to engage in formative assessment. Other web tools have been developed in addition to older usage of technology, word processing mainly, for use in interim and summative assessments. These methods of using technology in assessment are a good jumping-off point for our discussion surrounding positive aspects. There are a number of reasons technology in assessment should be seen as positive. First, seamlessness of transition. Organization of testing and assessment materials can be a huge hassle for educators. Utilization of technology can organize all pieces of the assessment automatically and keep them all secure. This makes the transition from planning to assessment to scoring to reporting as seamless as possible. Second, ease of rating and reporting. Educators' time is at a premium. Many say that the absolute worst part of being an educator is the time spent on grading all of the assessments that are given. Use of technology allows for many aspects of the assessment, particularly multiple choice, to be rated immediately and without taking up any of a teacher's valuable time. Naturally, ease of reporting achievement levels on assessments follows. Reports can be quantified, collated, created, and disseminated so much more quickly when done using technology, again freeing up a lot of time for educators to engage in other activities. 3. Speed of feedback. A huge part of whether or not an assessment is seen as worthwhile in the long run centers around how quickly the feedback from that assessment is given to the test taker so that they can reflect on their performance and modify their goals and objectives for learning. Use of technology in the assessment process allows for feedback to be given extraordinarily quickly, and in some cases, instantaneously. 4. Leveling the playing field. Students with special needs have been given access to technological means to complete assessments for quite some time now. Some say that this serves to ostracize those students from the general education population, as it makes it obvious that they are being given accommodations. If all students are using technology for their assessments, though, then the students getting accommodations would not be seen as different, making the social pressure that can sometimes impact students with special needs much more bearable. And last, creating a future-ready environment. This last and maybe best argument for using technology in assessment is this. The jobs and careers that our students will be going into in the future will not require them to exhibit the skills we ask them to use when we assess without using technology. Utilizing technology in assessment better reflects the types of skills that they will be asked to use, so therefore, it is better preparing them for life in society. Now that we've looked at the positives, let's look at the negatives. Just as there are many reasons why technology in assessment can be seen as positive, there are negative aspects that must be addressed. 1. Changes in planning and preparation. An assessment that, if using paper and pencil, would take a full class period, might only take 20 minutes if using technology. This changes the scope and sequence of well-planned curriculum and can upset the balance of a classroom. 2. Loss of individualistic subjectivity. When talking about the rating and reporting of certain assessments, there is something to be said for knowing the student and understanding their meaning, even if it is not exactly what they put on the assessment. Using technology to rate assessments loses that individual knowledge of the student and can hurt the student's performance in ways that can be seen as unfair. To be clear, I'm really only focusing on formative and teacher-created in-class assessments here. Any subjectivity in the grading of diagnostic or summative assessments is intrusive to validity and reliability and should not be present. 3. Clarity of feedback. Sometimes speed isn't the only thing that makes feedback worthwhile. In an educational world where assessment is almost constant, feedback that is provided in the same manner could tend towards confusing and unclear in its meaning. A system where technology is limited and feedback can be aggregated by an educator, synthesized to have some clear meaning, and communicated in a more humanistic way, can be feedback that is more meaningful to the student. 4th, unfair advantage. Students that have been exposed to more technology in various situations might have an unfair advantage on assessments that utilize technology over students that have not had that exposure. This is a hard advantage to quantify and prove and would muddle the reliability and validity of standardized assessments. And last, loss of basic skills. Assessments are in place to assess not only content acquisition, but basic skill levels as well. Reading comprehension, written organization, grammar, sentence structure, spelling, etc. are all aspects that can be looked at on almost any type of assessment. Utilization of technology with its spell and grammar checks and autocorrects take away focus from the need for those basic skills and their reflection on assessments. Is the use of technology increasing because it is simply easier, or does it actually provide more reliable data? Here there are a number of perspectives. First, tech makes assessment easier, not better. There's something to be said for the ability to pick up a paper and a sheaf of questions, make sense of them, and use a writing implement to demonstrate understanding, knowledge, and ability. There's also something to be said for that process being consistent over the years, proving to employers and decision makers that the person sitting in front of them, at least to some degree, was held to the same type of standard that they were in their time. If the content isn't changing and the expectations are only getting more strenuous and rigorous, then how does the introduction of technology actually improve on the data being provided by the assessment? Another perspective? Tech makes assessment easier and better. Content is changing. Instead of focusing on covering a broad swath of material, we are beginning to focus on covering more concentrated material in more depth. This means that standards must reflect these changes, and assessments that are created in order to prove accomplishment of these standards must be more in-depth as well. If a student is going to be asked to demonstrate a mature and enduring understanding of complex and in-depth materials, then technological supports must be in place to create an environment where that demonstration can take place consistently. Additionally, data becomes more reliable when there is more of it gathered. Use of technology allows for more test takers to take assessments in the same way with less variability, leading to better data. So, does the rise of learning analytics via educational technology usage make traditional assessments obsolete? Earlier in this lecture, I touched upon the ability of technology to score and report assessment almost instantaneously. This ability to see the data being provided by assessment so quickly and take it into account when reflecting and planning your practice for students is referred to as learning analytics. Many tech developers are including learning analytics in their pitch when trying to get educators to use their programs and apps for assessment. As we move forward, there are even beginning to be self-modifying programs that measure learner data and make changes to the learner's program based on that data, without the need for human intervention. Will this eventually make traditional assessment obsolete? It might. If a program can prove achievement of learning goals through individualized education that is responsive to learner needs and is seen as valid and reliable, then what need have we of a test from an outside source that proves the same thing? Redundancy could very well be destroyed. It is definitely something to keep in mind as technology becomes more ingrained in education and assessment. This will be touched upon in week 5 as well. We are still at somewhat of a crossroads when it comes to technology and assessment. How you decide to use tech in your own practice and gathering of learner data through assessment is still largely up to you. As we move forward, though, that individuality of choice might start to disappear. To those ends, it might be constructive to begin to formulate your own ideas about your place in the world of assessment through technology.